Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome your host, Jonny Lipsham.
Well, that went badly wrong, didn't it? I pressed all the wrong buttons in all the wrong orders. There we go. What a way to start the show. Totally 100% professional, as you can tell. So, anyway, I hope everybody has had a good few days since we last saw each other, which is on Sunday. So we are here tonight for Songwriting Simplified, and the reason why we're here is that Jonny is at the doctor's right now. But there is nothing to worry about. It's just a regular check, which he has to have, and it's just running a little later than normal. So hopefully he will appear in the chat at some point. Hopefully, but we've got a reasonable number of people here already, which is pretty cool. So, welcome everybody. So tonight is a Q&A session, as the title down here suggests. So, get your questions in, and the focus is, of course, songwriting, composing, arranging, and lyric writing, and related themes, okay? So get your questions in, and I would be happy to take them. And Music to Motion has the first one, actually. And he asks, I am going to set a goal to make 12 tension tracks in 12 days. Do you think that is too ambitious? Or should I... excuse me. Or should I take more time? It depends. I'll be honest. It kind of depends. A while back, my good friend Joe Gilder set himself a challenge to write 50 songs in 12 weeks, and he made the challenge. He completed it, and the result was that he was able to then go on and complete 3 out of 4 EPs, which was another challenge he subsequently set himself to do 4 EPs in a year, and he did 3 out of the 4, I believe. So setting targets and setting goals is a very, very good thing, but they need to kind of be realistic and achievable goals. Otherwise, you kind of set yourself up to fail from the start. So setting goals, having a target is a good thing to do. They can be ambitious if you want to really push yourself, like Joe did. He set the challenge of writing 50 songs in the time that it would take most people to write 2, maybe 3 songs. He did 50. And, he achieved the goal. He wrote 50 songs. Were all 50 of those songs terrific, awesome, spectacular songs? No, they weren't. And even Joe himself would admit that. I'm not stating anything that he would not be happy with. But he set a target. He achieved the target with mixed results. And I think that's to be expected. And I think you have to, even if what you write in that period, if you're setting yourself the challenge of writing 12 songs in 12 days, then you have to expect that some of them won't be as great as the others. That's just the nature of songwriting. You know, even great songwriters like Lennon, McCartney, Becker and Fagan, you know, Lieber and Stoller, Hammerstein, you know, they all, Irving Berlin and the Gershwin brothers, they all wrote some absolute tat at times that was just god awful. And you think, you know, they write such great songs. How is it this particular song is so bad in comparison? Well, it's just simply because sometimes we write bad, sometimes we write great. You know, it's the same in sports, if you're into sports. I'm kind of into quite a few sports. I played a few sports to a very high level. And, you know, you have great days where you have great successes and everything just comes right for you. You score runs, you take wickets, you score tries, you kick conversions, you hit home runs, you throw a great innings as a pitcher in baseball, or you score a perfect 3-pointer from an obscure angle on the baseball court. On the basketball court, rather. And then there are days where just nothing goes right at all. And you're just like, I'm doing exactly the same things. The mechanics are exactly the same. Why is it this day is bad, but yesterday was fantastic? And nobody knows. It's the vagaries of being human. You know, we're imperfect in that sense. So you have to give yourself some grace, is what I would suggest, so that you aren't, even if you do have some failures along the way, you're not setting yourself up to completely blow the whole thing. So 12 songs in 12 days. If you think it is doable, then shoot for it and see what happens. But don't beat yourself up if when you get to the end of day 12, you have 9 or 10 out of the 12 completed. And of those, maybe 7 of them are really, really good. But the rest, you probably wouldn't want them to go anywhere near anybody's ears. Because that's just the way it will work. I have written some pretty awful songs. In fact, I have even published and put them out there. Does everyone remember the December the 10th challenge that I did? What was it, 2 years ago? I think it was. And a good number of you participated, and a good number of you wrote some really, really outstanding songs. And I was just like, well, you know, if I'm going to set that kind of a challenge to people, then I need to do the same. I need to participate. So I did, and I wrote an absolutely god-awful song. It was in the wrong key for me. It was way too low for me to sing. And some of the arranging was pretty shoddy. And there was an awful lot of cheese, a lot of cheddar, a lot of parmesan in that song. But I put it out there. I put it out in the public domain. I had it up on my Bandcamp for a while, and unsurprisingly, nobody bought it. And I'm glad they didn't. But it's not there anymore. I took it down. But the point that I'm trying to make is, you know, shoot for something and see what happens, and don't smack yourself around the head if it doesn't come off. At least you went for it and you did it. That's the point. But yeah, try and make it vaguely realistic if you can. Don't kind of like say, right, I'm going to write 72 full orchestral works in 2 months, because you'll never achieve that. You won't even get close to it. So if you're going to set yourself a challenge, make it at least vague, you know, make it realistic so that, you know, it's achievable whether you actually achieve it or not. The goal itself is achievable. So I would say go for that. And you've got my support, and you've got the support of everybody here, I'm pretty sure. So go for it. Knock yourself out. Go make that music. Go make those tunes, is what I would say. Yeah, absolutely. Templates will definitely help speed things up. But don't just go for speed so that you get the thing done. Aim for quality first, quantity second. Then, you're going to have more successful tunes out of that batch of 12 than if you just rush through it and try and just do it just so you make the 12. You know what I mean? So rather than just saying, right, I am going to write 12 tunes in 12 days, no matter what, and then just bash, and try and get through it as fast as you can. Don't go down that route. It would be my advice. Go down the route of, I'm going to try and write, that's my target, I'm shooting for 12, and I'm going to write the best that I can for each one of those 12, and we'll see what comes out at the end. Whether it's 12, whether it's 10, whether it's 8, doesn't really matter. So long as what I've done is I've shot for that goal, and I've given it my best, and I've tried to put out my best quality work. That would be my opinion. Kevin's Guitar Story says, I'm writing a song that needs a tempo change. Can you demonstrate the tempo track? I can demonstrate the tempo track. It's actually really quite easy. It's a lot easier than you think. Let me see. Okay, so we're over in Studio One. And I'm going to go and get the tempo track out. So let's say, at the moment, this is set to 60 beats a minute. And let's say here at bar 6, we want to put in a little tempo change. And then here, we want to put in another tempo change because we want to go back. I can now raise this up to, let's make it something really noticeable. And then it will go back down again. All right. So let's pick it up at the beginning. Now watch what happens when we get here to bar 6. There you go. Now you'll see there that literally everything, the whole thing sped up to 118 beats a minute for those 2 bars and then immediately went back. Now you can set it if you want to, so you have a little bit more of a kind of a gradual change. You can do that with the pencil tool. You can kind of like pencil different things in here, different fluctuations that you might want. You might want it really subtle. Maybe not 116, but maybe we just go up by 9 beats a minute and then back down again. All right, so let's go from 2 bars before. Because I doubt you're ever going to want like a massive. I mean, you might want a double. You might want this to be double time. So we can do that. Come on, go down to 120. All right, that's more or less double time. 121. That'll do. And that's how it works. It's as straightforward as that. But as I say, you can make it as complicated as you want by drawing in different things. You can use freehand. You can, you can use a few of these, and just put in whatever you want. All right, but I don't want tempo changes, so I'm going to undo all of that because I want this to, stay as it is. Thank you. So there you go. I hope that answers your question, Kevin. Tony says, my goal is one song per year that I have lived. Now I'm 76. Now I'm at 76 songs, so I'm 6 years ahead. That's very good. I like that. Marcos says, bye, people leaving. Okay, Marcos, take care. Thank you for coming. Peter Brooks is here. He says, do you know of a good place for learning music theory? Yes, here. And also over at this show over on Jonny's channel, we often do a show on various aspects of music theory. We certainly have done in the past, and I'm pretty sure that Jonny and I could do a series of shows looking at different aspects of music theory. If you want to dive in real deep, then there are some great content creators that focus on those kind of things. Adam Neely is one of those. He's a bass player like me. He's a terrific musician, composer in his own right, but he's also a very well researched musicologist. So go check out his channel. It is absolutely not as boring as it sounds when I say musicologist. No, he is extremely cool. So check his out. Rick Beato is another one. Rick is also a musicologist, but he's also a guitarist. And he's written books on the subject. And he has all sorts of content on the subject on his channel. So go and check those two out in particular, is what I would say. But yes, here as well, I am a musicologist as well. I studied composition and arranging and musicology when I was at university. It was kind of part of my degree, which was in composition and audio engineering. It was a combined degree. So I am a fully qualified musicologist. So so if you've got any questions on music theory, you can certainly ask me. I'd be happy to try and answer those for you. Let's see. I need to scroll down. Music to Motion with the $5 donation. Thanks, buddy. I appreciate that very, very much. He says, thanks for the advice. I may give myself a little more time, but keep a goal of something like within 30 days. Yeah, 30 days might be a more manageable chunk, but, go for what you think is achievable and set yourself up for success is what I would suggest. Let's see. Martin Weeks says, regarding Music to Motion's first question, the actual brief will also determine how fast or slow one works. It can have an impact upon that, yes, but not necessarily. Not necessarily. I mean, if it's a challenge that he is setting himself, then he probably won't have any brief as to what style he's writing in, the instrumentation. He probably doesn't have a brief. He probably doesn't work that way. And it's probably in that particular scenario not necessary. Now, certainly if you are writing for film or you are writing for television, then yes, you will get a brief. And you will have a specific deadline in which to meet that brief. And you have to meet that brief very exactly. So, that's maybe slightly a different thing, but it's certainly related. And certainly challenges like saying to yourself, I'm going to write 12 songs in 12 days, that's a good challenge. But, when you're setting yourself a challenge like that, you probably don't need a brief. You don't want to be prescriptive. You can. I'm not saying don't, but I'm saying you don't have to be. And it's probably not necessary. It kind of depends upon what it is you're wanting to achieve in those 12 days. Are you writing 12 short pieces for a sound library? Are you writing 12 pieces for a film or 12 pieces for a TV show? In which case, yeah, you're gonna need a brief for each piece, for sure. Because you're writing to order. But if you're just saying, I'm going to set myself a challenge of writing 12 songs in 12 days, then go for it and just see what comes out. See what songs come out of that. You might get 12 totally wildly different songs, and that's not a bad thing. But yeah, thank you for that. I appreciate the contribution there, Martin. Martin Wheat says a lot of great standards in jazz often will do double timing in various places. Sometimes they do, that's for sure. John asks, please give us the names and links to theory contacts. Say slowly. Okay. Adam Neely. Neely, I think it is. But yeah, if you type into YouTube, into the search bar, Adam Neely, his channel will appear, and you can go and subscribe and hit the little notification bell. Rick Beato, so Beat-O, basically, is Beato. Again, type him into the search bar in YouTube, his channel will appear, subscribe, and go and check out what they have on their channel. That would be the best way to do it with those two. Ironweed Studio says, love Rick Beato's channel. Very interesting. Yeah, he is very cool. He is extremely knowledgeable, and he commands my respect very greatly. Let's see. Music to Motion asks again. He says, my goal isn't for a brief at the moment, but I want to build a 12-song album that I can submit to a library in the near future. There have been several requests for these lately. Well, there you go. If it's just a 12-song record, then pump it out. Go get a 12-song record done. And give yourself some grace on exactly how quickly you do that. Let me just turn this off because I forgot. There we go. All right, so that's cool. And I think we're at the bottom already, and we're halfway through the show. Let's actually see who's here, because I forgot to even do that. Music to Motion is here. Alps Media is here. Louis, thank you so much for helping me out with getting the word out there. Ronald Figura is here. He says yellow. There's a great song by Coldplay called Yellow. It's also an interesting color. Although I'm colorblind, so I wouldn't know. But I'm sure it is interesting. I'm here, obviously. Music to Motion asked that question. Marcos Gomez was here very briefly. John Lake says, I'm singing Springtime in Old Chicago. Awesome. And Tony is here. Mika Han is here as well. Marcos had an interesting point here. He says, music is volatile. You can crash with you can crash about results or fly with a lot of likes. Depends on moment, techniques, vision. Don't be so worried and analyze well your workflow. My opinion. Yeah, there you go. That's a good opinion to bring to the table. And I'm going to scroll back down again. Martin says, I briefly worked with a music library that was constantly asking me to do fix-it jobs where the libraries go to miss the mark. Okay, I'd be asked to submit before 5 p.m. that day a dozen times. Yeah, that's the nature of writing for either a music library or writing for film, a specific film that you've been commissioned to write for. I have written for many a student film because that's one of the things I do. I work with the University of Edinburgh. I work with their film students. And so, you know, their film students are always, you know, they actually have to, as part of their submission, they actually have to provide their composer with a proper brief. So, you know, I get briefs and I get deadlines that I have to work to. It's been very quiet on that front this year because of COVID-19, but I'm I have worked on a couple of films. Now, these films tend to only be about 20 minutes long, so they're not major films, 20, 30 minutes long. But, 20, 30 minutes of actual screen time results in a lot of hours of work in Studio One and putting the whole thing together. So, yeah, it can be a challenge meeting a client brief and meeting their deadline, and actually, you become gradually over time, you become very skilled at interpreting their vagaries of what they ask for and getting that into the score. And you know what? Even great film composers like Hans Zimmer and David Arnold, they still get called by the producer and or director. Hey, can you change this? Hey, can you cut that? Can you cut this section here out of this scene because we want to cut, these 2.5 seconds out of that scene? Can you cut those, but, kind of make the music join seamlessly and make sense and everything? Well, that to a director that knows nothing about actual composition, to him, that probably sounds like something you can fix in half an hour. It really isn't. It really isn't something, because you have to find a way to make all the music kind of lead naturally with voice leading and texture and that kind of thing, to join those two bits back together again after you've cut 2.5 seconds out of it. So, and they'll say, oh, can you get that sent back to us tomorrow at 0600 hours? Great, I'm working through the night on 2.5 seconds worth of music. And it's going to take me 6 hours to do, because I'm going to have to work out all the voicings. I'm going to have to reharmonize. I'm going to have to rephrase a particular melody line. It's a lot. But it is what it is. If you want to work in the film industry, if you want to work in television, if you want your music to be used in television, or film, those are the kind of things you have to do. Or, they'll say, you know what? I don't like the mood of this. The mood of this is too dark. Can you make it brighter? And they don't realize that actually means, you probably not only need to change the key, but you need to change the texture, which means you probably need to revoice and reharmonize. Even if you're keeping the same chord changes and the same melody, you're going to have to reharmonize, maybe even reorchestrate. Because maybe what you had was, you had the melody on a cello being accompanied by, I don't know, a couple of cor anglais, a couple of bass clarinets, and a couple of bassoons, and some low brass as well, kind of providing some counter melody, which is quite dark sounding. And maybe they go, that's too dark. Okay, so now I have to revoice. And now I have to think about, maybe I'll use French horns instead of the trombones. But maybe I'll actually introduce some trumpets with harmon mutes instead, to kind of lighten up the texture a little bit. Maybe instead of those cor anglais, maybe I'll swap them out for oboes. Well, that's quite a lot of work, because you have to not only transpose, but you have to revoice everything to fit those different ranges for those different instruments. So it's a challenge, but it is what it is. That's the nature of the business. Mika says, I recorded 12 songs in 6 days. It was a fully rehearsed jazz band, about 2 to 3 takes each piece. The time spent late at night was on the mixes. Yeah, recording. Yeah, I have recorded a record like that. I think it was a 14-song record with, not my band, but I was a session drummer on a particular date. And we did 14 songs. And we worked for 19 hours recording. And we nailed most things in one take. Just getting like the main tracks, we tracked everything live pretty much with a few overdubs. But yeah, the bare bones basics of the songs were tracked live. The rhythm section parts were tracked live in the studio, and we did all 14 songs in one take each. And then we went back and we did some remedial work. We did some overdubs and things like that. But yeah, it was like a 19-hour day, which was fun when you're being paid like, £100 an hour. I was not complaining. For sure. Martin then says, library I'm currently working with specifically targets film placements, so they do give me a reasonable time length to complete. They also expect much more detailed, precise work. Yeah, they will do. They will do. Absolutely, they will do. Steve Ross, the voice, is here. He says, you do what you have to do. Exactly right. And Lollipop Guild is here. Berkeley offers some music theory on Coursera platform. Yes, Berkeley have some great courses. In the UK, there is also the Guildhall School of Music and Drama. You can check those. I think they have some online courses for that as well, but I'm not 100% sure. Let's see. Tim Talks is here. My good friend Tim Flansbaum, who is a terrific guy, by the way. If you don't know who he is one of my moderators here, and he is a terrific audio engineer and educator in his own right. Go check out his channel, Tim Talks Audio, because Tim talks audio, and he talks audio incredibly well. So subscribe to his channel if you haven't done so already. If you haven't done so already, do it now. Because you should. Music Emotion says, I learned music theory, etc. Took about 6 years of piano, high school, and then Blair School of Music. Cool. I ended up trying to forget a lot of it so I could be free to make music the way I want to. Yeah, I understand exactly where you're coming from. I really do. I studied music theory all the way through school, through college, through university, and then on into, I did a postgraduate diploma in education. And my specialty, again, was audio and composition. So, yeah. Totally with you on kind of trying to, at least to some degree, kind of lose the theory side of it so that you can apply it more practically. However, here's the thing. A lot of people think that here's theory, this hand over here, here's practical music making, and the two kind of look at each other and go, hello, I'm music theory. I'm performing. I have a lot of fun. Bet you probably don't. Actually, I have as much fun, but I don't have much of a social life. And the two kind of don't go together in a lot of people's minds. Sorry, that was a really weird scenario. Pretend you didn't see that. We smack the mic in. And kind of a lot of people think that the two don't really meet. I disagree. Because to me, music, making the most out of performing and getting the best out of yourself and your instrument and communicating that to your audience, you need music theory to be able to achieve that. To be able to communicate the best, you need music theory. It's like if you want to tell somebody a story, you need to have a good grasp of language, literary devices, such as tension, drama, suspense, character development, plot development, but a good, you can be a good storyteller and be an instinctive storyteller and do these things instinctively, for sure. But if you add to that instinct some understanding of why you have those instincts and why those work and how you can apply them even better, then you take something that is natural and you supercharge it, in my opinion. I think of a great musician like Buddy Rich, who was a terrific drummer. Bags and bags and bags of natural talent. Probably one of those people who was actually just a genius. And, could just do phenomenal things on the drum set naturally without really a lot of thought. But that's not to say that he then never actually worked at it and never actually developed his technique and learned to understand how to get the best out of his drums, how to get the best out of, the techniques that he has and how to make them work more efficiently than he does already. Buddy Rich had drum lessons. He did. He did have drum lessons. Sure, it was later on in life and he was already, a highly successful professional drummer playing with the Tommy Dorsey band, and was celebrated by everybody and was already a terrific success and was working with Frank Sinatra and people like that, but he still had drum lessons. Why? Because he wanted to take what he could already do and make it better. And so that to me is where performance and music theory kind of meet together. It's fine that maybe on a guitar you only understand, here's an E chord, here's an A chord, here's a B chord, oh, and here's a C sharp minor chord, here's an F sharp minor, here's a B7 chord. And you instinctively know, I can make music out of those. I can write songs just out of those chords all on their own. I could write 50 songs just using those chords and they would sell and people would be happy with them. Yes, for sure. They absolutely would. But what if you learned how to turn an E chord into an E major 7 chord? And then you learn to put a 9 on the top of that. And just add a little bit of extra color, a little bit of extra spice. And then you learned that actually F sharp minor is chord 2 in E, B7 is chord 5 in E, and obviously E is 1. But using this little 2-5 thing means I can get from the key of E to any other key. Like, let's say I want to go to the key of A flat from the key of E. Well, that's fine. I can do this really rather oddly. I can go B flat 7, minor 7 rather, E7, A flat. And now I'm in the key of A flat. Okay, how do I get back? That could be a little bit tricky. No, it's not that tricky. F sharp minor, B7, E, and I'm back. And it's as easy as that. And that just goes to prove that a little extra theory knowledge will go a very long way to making a good song better. Okay, so I hope you kind of understand that. I've kind of ranted a little bit, but for me, music theory is as important as making music. You can't have the one without the other. It's like iron sharpens iron, in my opinion. The one sharpens up the other and makes it better. Let's see. Tim says, too late. The image of your hands as performing in theory now burned into my brain. Yeah, sorry about that. Let's see. Yes, I could have done with some puppets. Somebody needs to make me a theory and performing puppet. I'd be happy with that. Steve says, for some odd reason, my chatting ability is a bit wonky on my phone, so don't take it personally if I don't respond to you. Probably won't chat much because of this. Sorry about that, Steve. Sorry to hear that, mate. Let's see. Peter, I quite agree. I'm not going to read that, but I quite agree. I don't want to draw attention to it. There's no point. Martin says, actually, theory really plays a big part. It's creating great popular music. Look at the great examples from the 70s, Beatles, Eagles, Steely Dan, Rush, Earth, Wind & Fire, all rock bands mostly, but still. Yeah, and they all kind of, the reason why those songs from those bands are so good and so successful is because there's a lot of great arranging going on. And arranging comes from extensive understanding of music theory. Yes, it comes from do this. Does it sound good? Yes. Do that. Does it sound good? No. Okay, we won't use that because it doesn't sound good. We'll use this that sounds better. You can certainly approach your arranging using that simple yes-no kind of flowchart, for sure. And you will probably get some really good results doing that, because you're using your ears to make an informed decision about X or Y. Definitely. And that's a good place to start when it comes to arranging your song. But yeah, the reason why the Beatles and the Eagles and Steely Dan and all of those other groups, why their songs are so darn good, is not only is there a great melody that everybody remembers for the most part, but there's great lyrics that tell a terrific story that burns into your brain and you remember the chorus. But there's also lots of other great things going on in the background that are ear candy that keep the listener engaged and entertained. And particularly the Beatles, the Eagles, and Steely Dan, of those bands that you mentioned, those three bands were particularly great at it. And so, it's music theory that makes those things work. If you're going to tell your guitar player, I want some lead guitar lines in between this line here and this line here in my bridge section going into my chorus, well, the guitar player needs to know, okay, that's great. What chords do you want me to play over? You need to be able to communicate that to them. And you need to and once you've communicated to them what chord changes, they'll go, that's cool, I can play on those. And they'll either use directly the notes derived from the chord for each chord with some little passing tones, or some, they'll play some enclosure notes surrounding those chord tones to create a nice little melodic line, a nice little melodic statement that they can just use on those particular chord changes. That's music theory, whether you like it or not. It's music theory that informs how you're going to perform, and then you go and deliver the performance based upon your technique and the amount of practice that you've done and your skill set. So yeah, it's a fun one. Good question though. Let's see. Transition chords. Transition chords and chord substitution are terrific. I love those. Lollipop Girl says, I heard a tritone in a pop song yesterday. First time I've ever heard a tritone in a pop song. Tell you what, they are all over the place. And oftentimes they are very neatly disguised, and you don't notice that they're there. But they are definitely there. There's plenty of pop songs where a tritonal substitution will crop up. It's either going to appear directly in the chord changes, or you hear it implied by a solo instrument, or by the vocal, or by some other device that is going on. And it just will make your ears go, oh, that's cool. And usually, that's what makes tritonal substitution really works. If you don't know what tritonal substitution is and you have no idea what we're talking about, I am going to do some shows where we focus upon those kind of things, those kind of devices that can just give you some extra spice and some extra color for your songs. And basically all it is we're just talking about an interval of 3 whole tones. So from G to A is 1, G to B is 2, B to C sharp would be 3. So that interval of 3 whole tones called the tritone, or in the 1560s, I think it was referred to at the Council of Trent as Diabolos in Musica, the devil in music, because this interval was back then regarded as so discordant, Satan must have invented it. How wrong he was. And so the idea is that there are shared chord tones between these 2 intervals. I'll give you a little example. So take the chord of G7 and strip it back to bare basics. What do we need? We need root. We need major third. We need 7th. Those are the only notes you need, really, to make a G7 chord. Yeah, you can have the 5th, but that's what makes it up, okay? Now, if I move this G up to this D flat, I've now got D flat 7, and these 2 notes have stayed exactly the same. The F and the B remain the same. So they are what we would call, what the hell would we call those? Common tones. That's what you call them, because they appear in both chords. G7, D flat 7. They just have a different function. So in the key of G, on the chord of G rather, G7, the F is the 7th, the B is the major third. But in D7, the D flat 7 rather, the F is now the major third, and the B is the 7th. So their roles have reversed. So how does this work? Well, what this means is that D flat 7 will substitute for G7. So if I want to go to the key of C from F, I can go and do a 2-5-1 in C. I can go D minor, G7, C, and now I'm in the key of C. So I can do that. But I could also do, instead of G7, I could do D flat 7 instead, and it'll have the same function. Listen to this. D minor, D flat 7, C. If I strip it back again to its bare basics, so I'd go, and there's my C major 7 right there. Or, and it has exactly the same effect as the G7. It just provides a slightly different color, and it's just really, really useful. So I can go C, A minor, D minor 7, G7, C. You know, I can go, you know, I could do that, or I could go, and all I've done is just tritone substitute everything apart from C. So E flat, D7, D flat 7, C. Slightly more advanced music theory concept, but I tell you what, it adds a little bit of extra color, a little bit of extra spice to your music. Mika says, if you were in a series Bind for Time and had to choose, which would you pick? A, word salad lyrics with great music, or B, theory salad music with great lyrics? Yeah, word salad lyrics with great music, or theory salad music with great lyrics. I think you can probably make a successful song out of both. It's more the application than anything else, because I have heard really, really great sounding music with really terrible lyrics, and you think, you know what? The thing is, lyrics are important to a song with a vocal. They're not. You don't need them in an instrumental song, but you need them in a vocal to communicate the story, to communicate what is going on, to communicate, you know, the narrative, if it's a story or if it's just something a little bit more poetic. But the words, they don't necessarily always have to make sense for the song to be really successful. I mean, does everybody remember Para Bailar la Bamba? You remember that one? Spanish song? It's a nonsense song. It is an example right there of word salad, but the melody is very, very addictive. And everybody wants to get up and dance to it, right? Why is that? Because it has that really nice Latin vibe to it. It has a great rhythm section, it has a nice little horn section, it's got a good tempo to it, you can dance to it. The melody is irresistible. Nobody really cares when you're on the dance floor about what the song is about at that point. You could be talking nonsense. You could be spewing the most vile, disgusting things in known word history, but nobody would really care too terribly much. I mean, I suppose it's why things like Dolly Parton's song Divorce is so incredibly popular at weddings. It's because people like the melody, they like the groove, and they don't really pay that much attention to what the heck the song's about. And it's just like, you're wanting that song at your wedding. It's a song about divorce. You've just got married. Why do you want a song about divorce as your first dance? Are you insane? And they go, oh, I never realized that's what it was about. Precisely. So you can actually have both. Both can be successful. Word salad with terrific music, or a great, great lyric that really grabs your emotion, pulls you into the story, puts you, fills your imagination with everything that's going on, but the music sucks. Or, the music is overly complicated. Yeah, you can actually be successful with both. What would I prefer? I like a darn good story. I've always liked a darn good story. And, but the music needs to be of a certain standard too. I have my limits. Like, I think Dancing Queen by ABBA this might be contentious, okay? But I think Dancing Queen by ABBA is a good example here because, to me, I think the lyrics are contrived. But the music is actually pretty good because it's got a good groove to it. It's got some interesting chord changes. It's got some nice little melodic devices, like the kind of the piano thing that goes throughout the course of the song. Da-dung, da-dung, da-dung. It's just like, that's really, really effective. People remember that. That's ear candy that people latch onto. Personally, I think the story is contrived and is a little bit word salady. That's my opinion on the lyrics of Dancing Queen. It doesn't really grab my attention. I'm not into it that much. But the melody is pretty good. The arrangement is pretty good. And the groove is darn good. What's not to like about it in that respect? So I think there's an example where I would say, yeah, the lyric is word salady, but the music is good. And it's the music that kind of wins me over personally to listening to that song. And my wife, if she was awake right now, would be laughing at me because she thinks I hate ABBA. I kind of do, but that's just between me and you, okay? But yeah, to answer your question, I would find it hard to choose. It would have to depend upon the song. Which is a cop-out answer. And I'm aware of that. Caesar salad with extra cheese on top. Tony says, JL is the king of filling in. Really? I'm not so sure about that. That was Tammy, not Dolly. Okay, thank you very much. Tammy, what was her name? Wynette? Was it? I'm pretty sure Dolly recorded it though, right? And La Bamba has only 3 chords. Yeah, it most certainly does. JL's answer, neither both. Yes! I propose a third way. Fantastic music and fantastic word salad. There you go. So catchy the Beatles stole it for Twist and Shout. Well, they didn't really steal it. I think the concept of the 3-chord trick was well and truly done to death by the time the 1960s rolled around. I mean, you only have to go back to like the maybe the very, very early 1920s, and the beginnings of the Tin Pan Alley songwriting industry, because it was an industry, and a lot of songs were churned out that just had chords 1, 4, and 5 in it, and they made a lot of money out of it. So by the time you get to the 1960s, it's been well done, to be honest. Lloyd Hansen is here. Hello, Lloyd. Good to see you. He says, Badge by Cream. Perfect example of complete gibberish for lyrics. Great tune. Yes, the Beatles, I Am the Walrus, for very much the same reasons. Or Yellow Submarine. I mean, Yellow Submarine, you can't argue that melody is darn addictive. It is. The chorus is great, but the song itself, from a lyric point of view, sucks. But I know there is a clear reason why they wrote that song. Tony says, terrible comparison, JL. La Bamba has so much meaning and relevance to Hispanic and Cuban community. Yeah, you know what, Tony? I was not disparaging the style of the music because I actually like the style of the music. But I also understand the language in which the lyrics were written. And so I know what they mean. And that's what I was getting at. I was not disparaging the Hispanic community or anything else like that, or the Cuban community. You know, those I did not bring race into the subject. So I'm not quite sure where you're getting that from, Tony. But the point was, the lyrics themselves, regardless of what style the music was written in, regardless of the actual language, the lyrics themselves are entirely meaningless. They are deliberately so. Nobody knows what the heck that song is about. That's the point. The music is great. The lyrics mean nothing. That's the point. There was nothing, to do with race or anything else in there. So I'm not quite sure where you're pulling that from. But now that we've got that out of the way, love that song by Bob Seger. Yeah, I do too, actually. Let's see. Lollipop says we sang that one rocking our school bus out of the ditch. The submarine became a bus. Pretty funny. The whole bus was singing it. Yeah, I have played that at many a wedding, actually, and a few birthday parties as well. And I have to admit, I have never been able to keep a straight face any time that we've ever done it. And eventually I ended up writing a kind of neo-soul funk rearrangement and reharmonization of Yellow Submarine. It was hysterically funny. I basically took every kind of neo-soul cliche and stuffed it into the arrangement, and it was very entertaining for us as a band, and everybody else just looked bewildered and didn't really understand the joke. But for us, it was hilarious and entertaining. So, Tony, I'm sorry that you maybe feel offended by my comments regarding La Bamba. Nothing to do with the Cuban or Hispanic communities. So I'm sorry if you kind of inferred that from what I said, because that was certainly not what I was inferring at all, and not what I was referring to. I was referring to the actual lyrical content of the song, and not the fact that it was, it's Hispanic and Cuban style music. Nothing to do with that. Anyway, on that point, we are going to end the show there. Thank you very much for your questions and your comments. It's been really good. You guys have been very, very, very helpful, as usual. And hopefully, next week, we'll be back to usual with the joint show with me and Jonny Geib over on the Home Studio Trainer YouTube channel. And I'll be back here on Sunday night for Sunday Night Live at this same time, same place on Sunday night. Good night, everybody.